Hey, it's Millie, and welcome to the Generalist World podcast. This is a show where I interview people from the Generalist World community, and we talk things like the future of work, careers, predictions, their hot takes, and really understand what their squiggly careers have looked like. So if you're a generalist who feels like they're living in a specialized world, this is the podcast for you. Hello, Nicola. I am so excited to have you on the pod. How are you doing today?
I'm good today, thanks, Millie. Very excited to be here. As a fan of the podcast, I always enjoy listening to your chats with people because you never know where they're going to go.
Especially when it's with a community of generalists. I don't think two podcasts
Exactly.
have ever been the same.
No, never.
And so, on that note, if someone is tuning in for the first time and they may have not come across Nicola Earle before, why might they decide to spend the next 30 minutes or so for us? Can you give us a flavor of some of the things we might be unpacking?
Sure. I am a person who is very passionate that we can bring people together to make good things happen.
And what about the dreaded question when someone asks you, what do you do? How do you think about answering that?
Oh, it's such a tricky one because I do community, and if I say to people I manage communities, most people don't really know what that entails or even what the world of community building is. They don't know that
Mm,
it's a thing. So I always pitch it in a way, in a really simple way, where I'll say I help people to connect
mm.
online so that they can help each other. I kind of put it as simply as that, and then that opens the door to further questions and more conversation, I find, but people can make sense of what that is quite quickly. I live in the countryside, so most people that I end up chatting to have no idea about these remote workers like me working online, doing all these things. So they do look quite puzzled. So that's the way that I go and pitch myself, and then I let the conversation flow from there.
That is so clear. I like the claps to you because it's so difficult to describe community work for folks who haven't worked in it before. And I think the key bit is that peer to peer. It's like you're a facilitator, you're creating these spaces or experiences or events that bring people together and help them connect and help them support each other.
Definitely, because that's the magic, isn't it? It's creating the space so that people then begin to just help each other and enjoy it.
And so, how did you get there? How does someone who lives in this remote village end up working at this job that no one else in the village understands?
Well, I haven't been in the remote village always, so I was a city dweller for many years when I started my career. And I began my career working in internal communications, which is all around engagement and bringing people together. And that's kind of continued throughout my career. And that led me to becoming an online community person. And I've always been that person who would put their hand up in the workplace for setting up groups. And or the first one I did was at my first workplace, I was supported setting up a women's network. And every workplace I've been, I'm always kind of getting involved in things that bring people together. And it just seems to be what I end up doing. And I've been described quite often as a glue person, which I like. I like the thought of being a glue person that brings people together and helps teams connect and work well together.
Have you any hints on what it is about you that makes you a glue person? Any of the traits or skills or energies that you put out into the world? Why do you think people refer to you as a glue person?
I'm positive by nature and open-minded and accepting. I wonder if there's something in that I'm seeing the best in people
Hmm.
and seeing perhaps who they are and how they like to interact and do things. And because I can spot that, I can then connect the dots within the groups or the teams or the whatever it may be, online communities, and pull them together.
I think a lot of folk listening to this could resonate with that answer. And I also just wanted to underline something you said earlier about how you were like, oh, I kind of just I keep finding myself in this position, or these jobs, these tasks, they keep finding me, and there is so something to that. If you're listening to this and you're confused about the thing that is your superpower, the thing that makes you really unique, look for that. What is the thing that keeps magnetizing toward you? You don't even have to seek it. You just keep falling into it and you keep finding yourself in those scenarios.
That's so true. You become that person who people just go, aha, that
Mm.
is a Nicola job. That is a Millie job. Let's give them that opportunity.
Yes, I love to think of it as a shape in the company. And I remember when I left a company years ago, the first startup I ever worked for, and I was with them for about 3 years. And I remember the CEO at the time said there's going to be a Millie shaped hole in the company. And it's clearly stuck with me like nearly 10 years later because it wasn't a traditional job that I was doing. It was a very weird, unique, squiggly shape that I served and added value in that company.
Such a high compliment when you're leaving somewhere and you know you'll be missed, isn't it?
True, true. And so, Nicola, I want to get into one of your favorite frameworks, which is around be a villager. And we have connected and bonded over our shared love of giving back, volunteering, getting involved in our local community. And so, can you take our listeners through what does it mean to you to be a villager?
The core concept for me is getting involved and giving without expecting anything back.
Mm,
However, knowing that you will reap so many rewards in those relationships that you build and the skills that you learn and the way that you learn to communicate with different people who your path may never have crossed with otherwise. It's about being willing to get stuck in and do something for others.
yeah, I really resonate with that. Living also in a small community, I think this is one of the easier ways to get involved in local communities is if you are in a small one where your work is needed and it's quite normal, like it's quite typical for folks in our community to sit on a board, to volunteer in community organizations. And I think there's really something to it. We did a podcast a few weeks ago with Ali Dono, who lives in Austin, and she had a really similar take where she was like, volunteering and getting involved in these kind of community grassroots organizations is just such a great way to learn as well as to give back. It can kind of like check both of those boxes.
It really is. One of my first big volunteering kind of post education was becoming a guide leader in London, in Hackney in East London, and I ended up doing that for 5 years. But at the time, I was wondering if I'd perhaps enjoy teaching. It was kind of on my mind, and I thought, what a great way to go and test out that field and learn what it's like, learn what I'm like in that situation, how I feel, how my energy levels are. Turns out it's really tiring. So teachers do an amazing job. So yeah, I stayed as a more of an office worker after that, but absolutely loved it. And I'm so glad I did that. It brought out a really different side of me working with all those kids. It was great.
I love that. And if folks are listening and perhaps they haven't yet delved into the world of community and maybe they're like, I don't know, I've joined all these discords, they're kind of rubbish. I never got to meet anyone. What's your like strong arms pitch for why folks should consider seeking out the communities that could be right for them?
Community has been a massive game changer for me when I started to get involved, and it's really, really helped my personal development in a way that I didn't even know was an option beforehand. Because it's like this kind of supersized networking, isn't it? So we used to go along to networking events, well, I did, and you'd meet people and chat to a few people, and that might be it. And it was all very surface level. Whereas you get to meet so many people when you get involved in online communities from all different walks of life, importantly from places all around the globe as well. So you really get that diverse network and you start to learn from people and see all these different possibilities that you may not have considered.
And what do you think people get wrong about community, both from like a community builder perspective and someone who's just thinking about joining communities? Is there anything you would advise to watch out for?
As somebody who's built lots of different types of communities and been in lots of different types of communities, I think there is space for every type of member. So I think if you're joining communities, don't feel that pressure because nobody's expecting you to reply to everything, be posting all the time. It's totally okay to dip in and out. And in the role I'm in now, we've really emphasized this to our members that it's fine to take what you need from community. Sure, we love people who post and get involved and volunteer, but there will always be those people. Don't feel like if you're not doing that, that you don't belong there. You're allowed to come in and out. That's okay. And community people know that.
Yes, yes, yes. And this is a huge reason why we switched from a yearly membership at GW to a lifetime membership, because that's just a reality of how life's work. There will be seasons and periods where you really need and can get a lot of value from the community. And then there's others where you're like, I'm good. I'm gonna go. I'll come back if and when I need it. And now that we've been operating for a few years, I can see these cycles and I see someone come back maybe like 9 months, 12 months, 18 months later, and they're like, okay, I've just gone and had this intense period of XYZ, and now I'm coming back and I'm ready to either give or ask for help. And it's like communities can grow with you and with your different seasons of life.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I was thinking about seasons of energy actually earlier, so it's interesting. It comes up a lot for me, I think, seasons. But yeah, I totally agree. People should be encouraged to take what they need. And it's a bit like friendship when you haven't messaged someone for ages and you feel really bad about it. And you think, oh, you keep putting it off because you feel awkward about messaging them. But you shouldn't because everybody is always just happy to see and hear from you. And then if you pop away again for a while, nobody
Mm,
minds. They're just
yeah.
happy that you're there.
Yeah, that's such a great analogy. And where do you think community is heading? What's your predictions for the future of digital, specifically digital communities?
Yeah, I mean, the especially with AI coming in the past couple of years, we're seeing authenticity bandied around a lot in terms of community, that people are craving authenticity and intimate connection more so than the scale, I think. So I think people will be seeking out really meaningful spaces away from the slop
Mm.
where they can connect with their people, whoever they may be, and have a human conversation.
I think that's so spot on. And something I've been thinking about lately is I don't know if you're seeing it, but like my comments now on LinkedIn, like social media, are wildly, like exponentially getting more and more AI bot comments. And I was thinking, there's going to be really soon very little way to tell who is human and who is a robot on your feed. And the particular, I mean, the video now is wild. It can barely tell that it's an AI. And I was thinking, wow, like communities such as Generalist World, these are closed, they're private, they're curated, they're moderated. You can't be bringing your AI into our community. And I just think that's going to be so important. Like when we're so tired of being like, am I talking to Nicola the robot or am I talking to Nicola the person? I know that I can find Nicola the person inside these private, safe communities.
Yes, that is so true. And that vetting process that
Mm.
keeps places safe and secure will become really important, actually, won't it?
Yeah. If there is a generalist listening to this and they've got a squiggly background and they're hearing this and they're thinking, oh, maybe community could be a good fit for me, what advice might you have for them?
I think community is an amazing role for generalists. It's probably when I really first realized that I was a generalist when I was working in my first techie community role because you do get to touch every area. You're running events, you're creating content, you're doing marketing, you are doing project management, product management. You get to touch all these things and work with people all across the business. So you really do get to do a little bit of everything, which is fantastic. And at the same time, whoever your users or members may be, you're on the front line,
Hmm.
which for people who like to connect dots, that's a great place to be and actually a really good place for you to be because a lot of the role of a community person is that you are just noticing things and soaking it in, and you'll be out for a walk and suddenly those dots will start clicking and you'll realize something that all these things you've been soaking up you can make sense of somehow and innovate.
Yes, and this is where I think humans in the loop of community building, community management are just so irreplaceable because a lot of what we do in community isn't like a predictable workflow. It's like feeling, oh, something was a tiny bit off in that message or tiny bit off in that interaction. Let me reach out to this person. Let me see what's actually going on under the surface. And I think that's just where humans are going to like really, really thrive.
Definitely, communities are no two communities are the same because no humans are the same, and we're always changing and evolving. So the playbooks that you find for various communities are great, but you apply them and things will be completely different because of the humans who are inside your community.
Okay, so someone is like, yep, Nicola, sold. I want to do it. I want to go pitch myself or get my first community role. Is it as simple as applying for the open ones online? Is there any back doors or side doors? We love side doors for generalists, being like, okay, is there any other ways to get in? Anything that you've seen work to help folks get their first community role?
What amazing side door is being a member in the community that you love and that vibes with you, and being an active member, putting your hand up, the volunteering that we've mentioned, putting your hand up for voluntary things and making yourself known because often the first place communities will look for new staff, new employees is in the community itself. So, for community roles, is getting involved in some of the communities for community builders. Now, there are many of them.
Mm.
When I first got into it, I signed up to all of them, and I had so many communities that I was trying to stay on top of. And after a while, I realized that is not feasible, not manageable, and I picked the ones that I vibed with the most to then put my time and effort into. And from speaking with other people, it feels like, a small handful is about enough for most people. Pick the ones where you can build some good relationships with people and learn from them and get stuck in.
Yeah, and I guess that is where we actually first met. If we were rewind like a few years, well, it was actually my very first conference talk ever. I was so nervous. I can still remember the sweat that was coming off my palms going onto that stage. I was so nervous. And one of the really beautiful connections I got to make was you. And were you working there? Were you volunteering? What was the story?
I wasn't volunteering. I was there. I had been gifted a ticket through a community, through a contact I had made in a community, and you were amazing, by the way. So, I mean, yeah, and look where it's led to. But yeah, I think that was a year where I was trying to lean in to things and say yes to things and see what happened. And it meant I think I reached out to you on LinkedIn because I you had posted that you were going, and I said, "Oh, hey, Millie, I've been following. Let's say hi." And then we had a chat, and then I ended up joining Generalist World, and now I'm a few years in and a very happy active member. So yeah, it's just interesting that various events just led to all of that happening.
100%. And I'm so glad they did, for the record. So glad they did. I wonder if we could spend like a couple of minutes on understanding what your generalist world journey has looked like. Because as you said, you are a very active member. I love your agency where you're like, oh, this is a gap. Can I do this? Talk me through some of the things that you have done inside generalist world.
It helped me realize I was a generalist. That was point one, I think. Point one of entry. I was working in startup roles at the time for quite small startups. I was really doing a bit of everything and enjoying that place. I'm really enjoying it. And I must have found you on LinkedIn and just something resonated and I just kind of kept going for it. So yeah, joining helped me understand that I was a generalist and that was a good thing.
Mm.
And that it was great that I had these different interests and that I kept was willing to keep trying new things. And I actually had an awesome experience early doors where somebody was looking for people to do some coaching with. And that came at a time when I just really needed it. I was job hunting, and that was an amazing experience that I was so grateful for. And I was joining events and meeting people, doing the networking, and just giving everything a go and learning so much. And most recently, I have been running the Portfolio Career Lab with the lovely Natalie. And that came about from various little chats, I think, within the community on that topic and just connecting around that. And then it somehow became that we decided to run a lab. It may actually have been to do with the tiny experiments chat with Anne Law because we're running it as a sort of experiment, which has been great. So that's been lots of fun. And it just somehow happens. You have these conversations with people and you keep connecting around these certain topics and you spot each other. And the next thing you know, you're running a lab.
It's so funny because that's an example of everything you've just talked about in this conversation in action, where like you keep an eye on things, you start to see some dots, and then you importantly have the agency to connect them and say, "Hey, Millie, Edja, I think this is a really cool idea," and we're like two thumbs up, run, go for it, have a great time. So very grateful that you and Natalie are running that.
Yeah, I'm grateful that it happened because again, it's just, I see Generalist World as my personal development place where I go to learn and have some focus on me time because it's so easy in our day-to-day roles to get heads down in that. And it lifts me out of that for a brief moment and gives me these opportunities to reflect on myself and where I'm going and what I want from the next 20, 30 years that I'll be working.
Oh, well, I love that GW can be that for you. Well, speaking of the next 20 or 30 years, shall we get into any predictions? You don't have to go 20 or 30, who the heck knows what's coming then. But do you have any predictions that you think might be coming over the next, say, 12 to 24 months?
Yeah, I have been running the Portfolio Career Lab with Natalie as a result of picking up on these signals, which I think we've all seen, it's out there. The future of work will be these portfolio careers. And as a generalist, that's super exciting to me because it means I don't know what's going to happen in the next 20 years. I'm going to get to try different things and potentially have some really exciting experiences. And I'm just picking up on more and more people being interested in that
Mm-hmm.
and thinking about how to do it. I think taking the jump into kind of making it work for you, I'm still figuring it out. And I think lots of people are. So I think that will be something in the next few years that we'll see so much more of people helping you to understand how
Mm-hmm.
to do that or role modeling it.
Totally. And I think one place to start is when people think of a portfolio career, they think they have to start with four or five streams of that portfolio where you really don't. It could be one extra, and it might take you a year of working on that one extra, and that's absolutely fine. So I think kind of zooming in a bit and not feeling like you have to have this enormous portfolio right out the gate.
Yes, I totally resonate with that. I think it's about figuring out things that you're interested enough in and you have the remit to go off and do first and doing them slowly, really slowly on the side if you can and figuring that out. That's why I was thinking about seasons actually. I was thinking about that it's quite a slow figuring out process when you're thinking about what you want to do. Well, it is for me. And
Mm-hmm.
since starting that process, I'll be thinking about things in the background. I'll be thinking about the voluntary things I do, my hobbies, my job, all of which are things I love, and where that could sort of go in the future. And it's very hard if those things are all quite different, which is going to be the
Mm.
case for most of us, to really picture how that could look. And I think unless you start that thought process of thinking about it, you're never going to get there. But it kicks something off, and
Mm.
slowly you start to piece things together in the background of what that could look like.
Yes, and I think there's a danger to this idea of figuring it out because I think when we say figuring it out, it assumes that there's an end and it assumes that there's a destination where, like, I don't think there is. I am still, it's emerging even from when I started GW 3 years ago to now, and the way my role looks and the way I'm picking up these new different skills like partnerships and sponsorships and sales. Like that wasn't something that I had planned at the beginning. And so I think there is something to figuring it out always. And like that is the process.
Definitely, and accepting that it will be, could potentially be a slow process and it will be an ongoing process. And it's about, again, that tiny experiments mindset of
Mm.
trying a little something and seeing, did it work? Did you enjoy it? And just keeping going with that mindset.
Nicola, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you really wish you got to talk about while you have all of these people listening in?
We've covered a lot of the things I'm really passionate about, but when it comes back to circle back to the volunteering, which I'm super passionate about, and to encourage people, is finding something that is so easy for you that you can do it with your eyes closed, but that means so much to someone else. So a lot of what I do in the village that I live in with supporting people will be like whipping up a quick Canva poster. And they're like, wow, how did you do this? It looks so good. And I'm like, it's a Canva template. I changed a few words, but to them it means so much. And they're so grateful. And I now have these contacts and friends that I wouldn't have had if I didn't, put my hand up to do that thing. And it really was not much effort. So there's always something I think that you can do really easily and enjoy that will mean a lot
Mm.
to somebody else.
Oh my gosh, I feel this in my soul. Like, particularly the Canva. Canva in small villages and remote communities is a wild concept, and people think you're a magician when you whip out the Canva template. And an example that springs to mind is late last year, there was a last minute funding application that came out, and I'm on the board of our community hall. And it was like due on the Sunday evening, and everyone was like, there's no way funding applications take, weeks to put together. And I was like, guys, there's this thing and it's called AI, and watch how fast we can do this. And to be fair, it still takes a long time because funding applications generally are horrendous. And so I just blocked out a morning on Saturday, and thank you, Claude, for jamming with me. And we ended up getting that, I think it was a £20,000 grant. And in fact, we're getting a new kitchen just down the hill at the moment, which is an enormous thing for, a community of 191 people do not have £20,000 lying around to get a new kitchen. And you would be horrified at the state of our last kitchen. So I think it's like bridging these two worlds. You and I, we both spend a lot of time in tech, digital, online. We are privileged to have access to understanding what these tools are, how to work more efficiently. And I think if you can bridge that world to your local community, it's just a really amazing thing to be able to do.
It really is. It's a privilege. And you assume that people might know these things, but often they don't because they've just not
Mm-hmm.
been in that world and we can be there for them.
Well, Nicola, thank you so much. We will link all of your profiles and your links so people can get in touch directly and say hi. And thank you so much for all of your efforts in Generalist World. They are so appreciated. And thank you for coming on the pod.
My pleasure. Thanks, Millie.